Welcome everybody to this presentation about a governance method for the realization of smart products. My background is actually in linguistics, and I am in the business of innovation management since almost 30 years. I worked with many companies, and what I want to present you today is my learnings from working with these companies, very much in the area of governance. If you want to know more about Sopheon and the background of Sopheon, feel free to ask or go to our website, it's fine. So to set expectations, I will not talk about certain things today, but in scope, I will focus on discrete manufacturing, companies that have hybrid smart products. Hybrid is a combination of hardware and software. Companies that operate globally, medium to large size, and other sectors with complex products and manufacturing. For instance, you could have medical devices and other companies that have complex products. Even in the chemical sectors, there are companies with complex hardware, software combined products. I will not talk today about these issues. So if you have an expectation that for this, then you are not in the right presentation. So I will not talk about innovation and startup small companies, not about governance, not about companies without any hybrid products, and not about ideation, disruption, and new to the world, interesting subjects, but that I could talk about, but I don't do, and not about pure research, invention management, and incubation methods. I talk about discrete manufacturing companies, big companies that need to get hybrid smart products to the market. The agenda of my presentation is: what is the challenge really? Why is governance critical? What is the domain of governance? Governance and flexibility, so that it is not a bureaucratic thing, but a speed thing. We worked on the Sopheon Innovation Governance Framework, something we work hard on because our software is management software and should support this governance framework. I will mention some specific governance methods without going too much in the details, conclusions, and then at the end, I give you the chance to score your company against 10 criteria very, very quickly and speedy. So this is what I want to do. If we go to smart products, an example is the car. And you have to see that it is a network of hardware and software features. So a product is a network of features. This is quite key. In innovation, we mostly talk about products, product. We don't talk about the product as a network of features. So when you go in discrete manufacturing, in the end, it is a network of hardware and software features, and it makes it hybrid. Some of these are in the car, some of them are so embedded, some of them are online and connected, and this creates complexity, a lot of complexity for the customers that I have. I know Martin Koller, I saw quickly your face there. This is from Varian. A tumor radiation product is also a network of hardware and software features. And if you take a washing machine, it's the same. So I will talk about this kind of products where you have components and features built in what the product is. It's a network of features. Why are they complex? Nowadays, you hear a lot about digitization. They are complex because software components are also outside of the product. So 10 years ago, we have software within products since a long time. But nowadays, we have more and more in the digitization components outside of the product, connected, makes it more complex. Assembly lines are more and more digitized, which is a big risk of expensive recalls because they are under pressure to improve that digitization very quickly. We have the sustaining of products and features in the market demands new business models. If you have a Tesla car or you have a mobile phone, you know what I mean. You are part of a legal system that has to guarantee product safety and they update features that are online, basically. Then sustainability. If you have sustainability, the sustainability is a big requirement nowadays for discrete manufacturing companies because they have to design circular, they have to get the waste back, and to do that they need ecosystems of companies, and that comes back into the new product development processes, and that is not so easy to do. On top of that, there's price pressure and time pressure. The price pressure in Western Europe also in America, comes a lot from China actually. And the price pressure is at the same time as the complexity goes up. So if you have these two tensions, then you are vulnerable and you have the risk of going wrong. And if you go wrong, the impact of that failure is high. So you have product launch delays, product recalls, and later of missed market opportunities. But these two are already very concrete in most of my customers. They have those problems. And we need to repair those problems and cheap and better and more solid. Here you have examples of that from the papers where you have recalls from the car industry. And you would say, why do they have that? Well, they have that because of the risks that they have that I was talking about earlier. Well, also the innovation management game changed over the last, let's say, 5 to 10 years. So it used to be that innovation management was more an R&D factor. Now it is really a new business factor. Innovation is on the CEO's agenda and not only on the VP R&D agenda. The people that depend on the quality of innovation and the speed of innovation is a lot more than the R&D driven economy that we used to have, let's say 30, 40 years ago, where that stage gate, agile and idea to market very much is within R&D. We are now going in innovation as a business factor. Also, digitization and climate are the new big trends. They are on the agenda, and in combination with each other, they give complexity. And it's not so easy for people that are already long in a company to get an idea of what that really means. It also demands that you, as a company, have new suppliers, new ecosystems, and work on that. So there are new complexities in the game. And then at the same time, you have a discussion in many companies where you, what I would call a methodology clash, where traditional versus agile methodologies, project management methodologies are discussed. Because of digitization, software people, software departments are more prominent in the companies, still only in general 20%, not more than that, but they are very loud, I must say. And there is a lot of discussion about agile versus waterfall, traditional, and so on the development side of the equation. Personally, I believe, and I would like to prove that in this lecture, that is counterproductive. That this clash is not necessary at all, and it is based on the false idea of where innovation really is. Innovation is not only in engineering, and innovation is a very company-wide, cross-functional event. And I think that this discussion around traditional versus agile is too much focusing on the plumbing of the house. And if you have the plumber building your house, you get this result. And that's not what we want, of course. So why is that governance then so critical? Let me tell you a couple of stories, and you can visit this blog that I have since a couple of months. In my professional life, I did many interviews. I interviewed people in many companies, and some of these I think I would like to share with you here to illustrate the problem. The first one is Joe, the CEO. When I spoke to Joe, the CEO, and asked him what his problem really is, he said, "My problem is that I cannot predict to the market the future of my business. I cannot predict what comes out of the pipeline, what the innovation will bring. So my pipeline is not trustworthy. We are bad in launching. We have many recalls. And if we are too late, we have revenue gaps. On top of that, the complexity of my products go up. We have green products combined with digitized. And I asked him, what is it that you want us to help you with? And he said, to be predictable. That is my main problem. Okay, let's go to the next one, the product line director. His name is Leon. I don't give you the full names here. And he said to me, Huub, I'm driving a car without a steer. I cannot steer it without a steering wheel. I cannot steer. I have no power. I have to beg everybody in the company to realize my roadmap. I have to refresh the sales catalog for my product line with 20% per year. I don't know how to get it done because I don't have the resources. The resources are with engineering. And what I have with the sales guys, I have to deliver to the sales guys. If I am too late with my products, the sales guy will be too late for his retailers and lose shelf space. And they lose shelf space to the cheap competitors from the East. Wow, and that is expensive. Winning shelf space back is almost impossible, very, very difficult. Okay, that is very much on the business side. Now let's talk to a chief system engineer. And the chief system engineer is called Andrew. And he told me the following, look, I am a chief system engineer. Since we work in the company with Agile, on the software side, also on the hardware side, as a chief system engineer, I am in problems because I don't know proactively what will come to me and when it will come to me. And I have to make sure that everything fits together at the product level. That is not easy. And in my view, we lost control because we don't know in the beginning what will come out of the projects. We don't know what comes out, and I then have to fit together. So we should be more proactive and have a system architecture, a hard system architecture of a new product from the very, very beginning, and everybody should deliver to that architecture. But in the company, that's what Andrew said, I am not in a position really to do that. So I end up with a lot of change management. I end up with a lot of, let's say, coordination, which I shouldn't have in the first place. Okay, so the system engineer who is responsible for the product in the end and how the network works as a product has this issue. Chief engineer digital, another company, by the way, from another company. He says, I am responsible for making digital products, features in my company. And the problem that I have is that the features, they have to fit to work together with the hardware side. My rhythm is quick, the hardware side is slow. So I have to deliver, I want to deliver in an agile way quickly, but then I cannot deliver because the receiving end is not ready or the receiving end cannot test it. And it takes a long time to test it. The rhythms are very different. The consequence of that, for me, he said, and his name is Michael, is that I have to keep my people at work. I need to restart again and again. And the restarts are expensive and they cost resource time. While my people are also doing services work, I can hardly do new things. So partly restarts, partly services. We get scope creep because of that. And now I am not competitive anymore, also not competitive anymore to third-party suppliers who hammer the door and say, look, we can do this for you and that for you. So in a competitive situation, I am, the loser. Those are 4 stories, real life stories that you have. So what is the common factor here? So if you look at this bridge, then there are some people who fall off the cliff. And they fall off the cliff because they cannot be proactive. So the CEO and the development teams have a big distance. And how do we get that organized? And that is where the governance comes in and our governance framework comes in. So development teams should work in the way they want to work and where they feel best to work. The CEO as a strategy needs predictable, he needs to know what comes out of it. And for that, we need that governance framework. Perhaps you know this bridge in France, the Millau Bridge. It's a big bridge, 300 meters high, these pillars, beautiful bridge. I'm afraid of heights, so I had to go over it, it was a problem. But it's nice, you have pillars in the company and the pillars need to be connected. And the governance framework is basically the connection mechanism to make sure that we fill that gap. If we want to fill that gap, we have to understand the domain of innovation management a little bit. So if you go in innovation, you say, okay, normally we have strategies and we have the front end of innovation and we have the back end of innovation. Also, Gartner now talks about the front end and the back end. In general, 15% of the resources work on this side and 85% on this side. So here you have front end, research, new IP, brand research, experience insight management, all these things that you need to do on a continuous basis. And here is the innovation for the product lines and for the sales catalog, product line roadmaps and so on, new products realization, new assembly preparation and so on. So this side in the end has to bring the revenues. This side has to be very predictable. This side cannot be that predictable, should have space to try, to prototype and research, both on the market side as on the technology side. So, of course, this also has to be related to a strategy like this, has to be related to the strategy. This is more longer term, this is short term. And we need to distinguish that. So I think this picture is better, in fact. The front end is here. It's like a circle around it. And they are in an advisory role all the time, continuously to the business and to the strategy level. And they have input in the product line and portfolio innovation. But here in the middle, this circle, that has to make the business. So you have products and revenues, you have new features, make buy decisions and so on that you do. You know exactly the cost ceilings when you ask for the realization of a product and when you ask the manufacturing to prepare it. And then you launch it. This is the heart of the business, of the innovation business. And I think it is important to keep that in mind. If you then go, what is really the domain of what we have? And perhaps there is too much detail here, but you can look it up later. The domain model is also almost like an overarching data model for when you have a system to manage this. So you have a line here, it's above the line and down the line. And above the line, you have the business management. The product brings commercial variance to regions. A product always goes with variance. Even if it has one variant, it has one variant. What you buy in a shop is a commercial variant. When you do discrete manufacturing, you don't buy the product, but a commercial variant of it. And I have companies with 10 variants. I also have a company with 500 variants. For one product, 500 variants. Can you imagine? And they go to regions. So some of these variants go to 2 regions, or to 3 regions. So this, you have to understand that the regions define the income. What is the revenue estimations that we have for each of the variants so that we know what the revenue estimation is for that product. So if the CEO, Joe, the CEO, wants to have predictable revenue, we need to do this process very well. And here is the features. A product is a network of features. 80 to 90% of the work down here is to develop features. First in the elaboration phase, and then later on as a realization phase, you realize it. So when you are in the front end of innovation, you do technology research, you do studies, you elaborate new features till a maturity that you know, okay, now we can propose them to the product line to include them in a product. So the features don't go like this to the market on their own. No, they go like this to the market. And here under the line, once we know the product, once we know the money that we can make with it, we also know the margin that we should make. We can also say, okay, this is the money, the budget that we have available to produce it, to develop and produce it with enough margin. There are companies where 70% of the new products are loss-making, and 30% make up for the rest. So they shoot with hail. That, of course, is not a good situation. If you would make that 20% better, that would already be the case. And with good governance, you can do that, I think, for sure. So when you have a new product with, let's say, 10 commercial variants, and you decide to do it, it's on the roadmap, it is funded, then you have this triangle here. The product needs to be realized. More than one feature has to be realized and delivered to the product level. And here is the system level, here's the feature level. And of course, the assembly line has to be prepared. If the assembly line is not prepared, you cannot launch it. And if you have 10 commercial variants, it needs to be prepared 10 times. So that is the complexity of discrete manufacturing. Well, down here, you see development, really. Here we have realization, and here you see development. And you can have software development, you can have hardware development. Here we go hybrid. And some of these projects can be agile, some of them not necessarily agile. It depends per company, what they think is best for them, what they think is most complex for them. And they are managed in a variety of systems. What we try to do is bring our arms here, make sure that we coordinate all this. And that is what the governance then is about. And the people that play a role in this domain are these people. It's not complete even, I forgot some, but they have to work together and they have to be coordinated. And that coordination is not just like a spontaneous thing, it has to be a governance model that does that. So to be flexible, let me go here. To be flexible, you can compare it with, I'm sorry, I make a mistake. So to compare it with, this is American football. In Europe, we don't play that. That's just for the American visitors, we don't play that. But you see the black ones and the white ones, and they are organized. They are coordinated. There's a system of governance. If the game changes, they know what to do. The governance is so that they know what to do. Everybody has his accountability and they will run like that. And if you see it in an abstract way, you have it something like this. It's organized, it's governed. Let's go to Duke Ellington. Duke Ellington plays jazz music. And this is a nice one where he had a blues song where he says, okay, this is the schema that we have. This governance is bad. For the rest, you can improvise. So here it is flexible. And here you have a schema. The governance is there, and thanks to the governance, they can do the improvisation. Rugby. In rugby, you have scrums. And don't think this scrum is just by accident like this. So you have to play with the weights within the scrum to push the other one to a certain direction. And of course, it's well organized. And the same is true for the traffic. Perhaps you know Bangalore in India, beautiful city, happy to be there, but this is the traffic. There's no governance, so it stands still. It doesn't move. And this is my country, the Netherlands, and like many other countries, it's well organized. And what you see here is, it will always move. There is one lane here, is there for unexpected situations. And that is what governance has to do. Governance has to make sure everybody goes smooth and speedy. Everything is organized. Everybody knows what to do, is trained to do it. No bureaucracy, just mandates, but no bureaucracy. And be ready for unexpected situation so that you can escalate and do things and vary on what you have to do. So how would it work for these people? If you compare the rugby and the traffic and so on with discrete manufacturing, how would that be? So you have all these people, and down here you have the teams where we have the discussion around agile and not agile and all that, So how do we coordinate this? To do that, we developed the Sopheon Innovation Governance Framework. And that should be a chassis that holds the thing together. And this Innovation Governance Framework is a system, it's a regulation. Like you have a law, a system of rules, a system of mandates, a prescribed process. I don't go to the whole text. If you have the presentation later, you can read it in your own time. It is a law of operation. So it is decided, it is given by the C-level as a law of operation. And everybody is trained to apply that law so that we can lean, flexible, and adaptive, because we have a system. Like that empty lane in the traffic, to be lean, flexible, and adaptive. We need to have the governance in that way. If I look at the distinctive powers in the decision-making process that we have to deal with, you have really the business side, you remember, above the line, and you have the engineering side, under the line. And you have many functions working together. It's always the case. You have these functions always. There's no company without these functions. And each of them have a task to do. And so where is the power? Where is decision-making? If you do a law, a regulation, you have to mandate people and give them the power to take decisions, because you don't want a whole parliament to take a decision. You don't have the time in a company to do that. So what you want is a coordination table. And the coordination table is here, where you have the business side and we have the realization side. Without going in all the details, but these are the things that on a day-to-day basis, you have to agree on. You have to know it. And if you do that in time, and if you do that proactively, you don't get the problems of the CEO, and you don't get the problems of the product line manager and the chief system engineer, and also the software guy, the digital guy. You don't get the problems if you do this. All four of them was a lack of governance. And if they would have the governance, they wouldn't have that issue. So we agree the strategies, we know the revenues, we know the phase-in, we know the feature selection is on this side and not on that side. Feature selection will be here. They take the decision. FTE capacity assignment from here to there, not the other way around. Deadline management across projects. Technical alignment so that manufacturing knows in time from the features what is coming. And they should be able to control that. So the governance framework is in the end a governance table, which is a permanent table. So which methods do we have there? It is based on the principle of subsidiarity. Subsidiarity is a political system where you give the decision-making to the levels that can take the decision. So low level should take low-level decisions, high level should take high-level decisions, and in the middle, you have middle layers that take decisions. They are mandated to do that. You don't have 5 signatures, no, is somebody mandated to take the decision, that's it. And if you have to escalate, you escalate, that's it. So in the principles of the Sopheon Innovation Governance Framework, the business strategy is leading. That means there are very concrete targets, KPIs, financial targets, sustainability targets, and so on. And the business strategy allocates engineering FTE capacity to product lines to realize their roadmaps. So they don't give the capacity to engineering and engineering here, do whatever you want to do with it. No, they say of the, for instance, 1,000 people engineering that we have, so much should work for this product line, so much should work for that product line. Because there are priorities that we have as a company. Product lines then, they decide which new features go in which new products on the basis of proposals, of course, from the engineering side. But they have to take the decision because the features are relevant for which commercial variant will be more, for instance, basic or silver or gold or whatever. Because commercial variants of a product, they vary with features, like you buy your car, and you know when you do that. So the next sales catalog drives the innovation roadmap primarily, and nothing else. Products and features are owned by product management, so the business side, because features are business objects. Features are technical as well, but they have to use many components to be a feature. So a feature is also not the one-on-one with a component. And take the traffic lights of your car. You know, if you want to say I want to go to the right side, then you go to the right side by pushing a button, but you use perhaps 5 or 6 components. So features are business objects. It is something, a capability that you sell in the end to a customer as part of a product. If you sell features separately, they are products. They are not features anymore for the definition. The whole system is based on collaborative agreements. So product lines prioritize FTE capacity to engineering departments on the basis of committed deliveries. So there are contracts in the system, in the governance system, contracts, kind of SLAs between engineering departments and product lines, so that the product line knows what to deliver, what they get delivered when. That is very predictable. It is not a gamble. It is a serious game because they have to deliver to the salespeople to sell the stuff to the market. So there is a system of internal collaborative agreements, very traceable and compliant with certain rules. The company has a clear escalation structure to handle unexpected situations. For example, you have now this crisis around chips. You know, the chips are late and so on. So that gives unexpected situations. Go and solve it. They have to change the roadmap. So to do that, you have a clear escalation structure because it could be one product line against the other and so on. The front end of innovation is funded in a separate way. There's no interference with the business innovation management. And that is important. So we need to have the time to develop new ideas, new proposals, new science, new market insights, and so on, to propose things to the backend. We have to help the backend innovation forward. So we respect, and it's also important, the natural ways of working of the disciplines involved. Disciplines are manufacturing engineering, electrical engineering, physics engineering, software engineering, chemical, and so on. These are disciplines. And of course, they should work with the tools they want, in the way they want. And if that is agile or something else, it's not really relevant to our framework. They think it is relevant to everything, but it's not relevant to everything if there is a framework. So they can be free to work the way they want to do. And if you see that in what I would call the wheel of responsibilities, the company sets targets, agrees, sets FTE capacities, capex and budgets. The front end, analyze market, elaborate, blah, 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 and so on. You can see that. I don't go in every detail. The product line here are in the center of the operation. They own the financial targets and estimations. They own the digitization of CV targets for the market. They own the entire product and feature lifecycle. So also when to phase out a product. It's there. It's not a technical question, it's a market question, how you do that. They prioritize features and products and nobody else. And they prioritize the capacity that they have to realize their roadmap. That is sometimes against the culture, the current culture in companies where the engineering is historically very strong. So with that Sopheon innovation governance framework, I think we bridge the gap between digital and hardware because we go at the product level and the network level where we solve the issue. And we have clear agreements. We bridge the gap and avoid conflict between business, R&D, and production. They should not have any discussion, basically, if the framework works. We enable top-down and bottom-up transparency, clarity, and collaboration. And for that, we sell a system. We respect the nature of disciplines and function in the way they want to work. Let them work how they feel fine, and that would be the most productive way to do. And we create with the framework flexibility and speed of operation, and not the traffic like you see it in Bangalore, where you need a lot of bureaucracy to solve the issue. That being said, brings me to the last point of this presentation. I think I have 1-2 minutes to go. First of all, give yourself here on a piece of paper, if you can, just a score between the 0 and the 10. At the end, if you are 100, you are a perfect company. Really, believe me, you are perfect. If you are around 40 to 50, I think you are quite middle of the road. But it's not easy to be middle of the road. Many companies that I know are too positive about themselves. So first of all, do you have a governance charter published by the C-level? If yes, 10. If no, 0. Do you have a clear escalation structure in case of dramatic changes? A clear escalation structure. The company knows within a day what to do and takes a decision. There is a crisis team that does that, and that's it. Are the product liners in your company in charge of the product roadmaps and launch calendars? In charge of, not administer them, but they are in charge of, they decide them. Are the product lines only a quantified portion of the engineering capacity, or do they have to beg for it, like Leon had to do in my example? Do they own a capacity or don't they own a capacity? Very important. Do we have, when we start realization of products and features, do we have explicit cost ceilings? Like we would have them for third parties, because we should be aware of the margins that we have. Can manufacturing control early in the development process the design of the new features? And are the new features in compliance with what manufacturer can do, yes or no, to avoid redoings later on and to avoid recalls? So is manufacturing involved in an early stage with controls? Do the product engineering departments have explicit traceable delivery commitment agreements, SLA, internal, with product management, like third parties have? I hope so, but I don't think it will be the case. If you don't have them, you score a 0. Go on. Product management owns the business lifecycle of features and products. I think, in general, products would be yes, features no. That is, we know. So if you have hybrid products, you have to have both. The product lines have measurable annual targets for digitization. Measurable annual targets. Your product lines have measurable annual targets for sustainability levels. Not a vague strategy somewhere, no, measurable annual targets. For instance, 20% of our new products should have a high level of digitization. For instance, autonomy. 80% of our sustainability products should be recycled. Something like that. Those are the ones. I hope that you had the opportunities to score yourself. I hope that you are not in a depression now. And I hope that you liked my presentation and it was useful for you. And that's it. If you want to know more, you can go to my blog where you can read a little bit more of it. Just huubrutten.com. If you type that in, you get there. If you want to know more about Sopheon, you will find all kinds of resources. And if you want to send us a mail, please send us a mail or send me a mail. You can also reach us through the magnificent people of the Innovators Conference. Thank you very much for your attention so far.
Thank you, Huub. I got some really new light bulbs going off in my head. But before I share mine, I want to open the floor. I'd love to take, Huub, I should say, would love to take questions. I won't be able to answer any, but Huub is here to answer your questions and discuss these ideas with you. Feel free to just unmute yourself and speak, or if you'd like to put it in the chat, I'll make sure he sees it.
No questions.
Well, so I'd love to hear what surprises you found in doing the scorecard. I won't ask you your score, but I'd love to hear what surprised you.
Okay, let me start to get the ball rolling here. So first, the presentation, Huub. I mean, we know each other, and a lot of déjà vus on my end. What we have discussed in our project we had together. Yeah, and very, very true. What I have seen there, a good presentation. From the scorecard, well, I'm below 100. And yes, and also there, we probably know the pain points already we have to deal with. And yeah, we are moving into that direction, but we are not yet at the finish line, let's say it that way.
I feel your pain, Martin. HC asks in the chat, Huub, what results are you seeing from your approach?
What result I would see from my approach?
Yes.
Yeah, I think that the companies will be a lot quicker and more predictable, because I see that the companies are spending time on discussions that are not really relevant. A lot is not really relevant. It is interesting for certain persons, but not. As long as you have the gap, you remember that slide when I see you have on this type the CEO and they're the development teams. If the development teams have a discussion under each other, it's not relevant. Absolutely not relevant. If you have that valley in between, if there is no governance between the strategy and that, and strategies in the development teams, what I see in the discussions are very vague. Yeah, they are not concrete. They are like as if they are 40 years ago, I would say. 40 years ago, you still had, perhaps 50 years ago, you had R&D. R&D had a budget, and R&D tried to make as much as possible out of that budget. and he engaged people. And innovation, it was idea to market. And in certain sectors, it's still the case, but idea to market, in my view, does not exist. I never saw it. I never saw any idea ending up in the market. And we still talk a lot about that. And I think that is counterproductive. So the point is, if you have a strategy and you have agreed roadmaps and you know what needs to be done and brought to the market to make sure that we get the money in and the revenue in, that is the imperative for what we need to do. And you got to be ready for it. I don't say that there should not be research or something. Don't get me wrong. That has to be there, and you have to prototype there and learn and what have you. It's important. But if the back end of innovation is not well organized, you end up, as I call it, you end up in the soup. So it won't work. I think it will be more easy to work. It will be more crisp to transparency. It will be more quick and no problem. So this is really the case. We have with the chips, this whole chips problem in the world. That car companies had to go down and what have you. But also in the innovation side, if you make a new product and you think you need a certain chip for that feature for that new product, and that chip won't come, and you don't have the time to do it. Okay. So what do? Then you need to have an escalation methodology to quickly say, what do? We need to have the data for it, the system for it, and then take a decision and you move forward. But if you don't have that traceability and if you don't have the system, you end up with debates nobody knows. So you have the Tower of Babylon. You know the Tower of Babylon? That's what you get, and that was not a good tower. So that is what it is.
There was a comment embedded in there that's really striking me in the work around open innovation. I think there's often an excitement about the research and the ideation and the prototyping, and there's not a really strong connection to how that will come into actually making something that hits the production line. So I appreciate the guidance there.
I once listened to I don't quote the person, but from a very big chemical company who said, I saw 4,000 ideas in my life. I never saw one go to the market. Mm-hmm. And so open innovation has. So I was in a conference once about open innovation, and there were examples of open innovation from big companies, and not one of them was open. Not one of the examples was open. It was simply collaboration between two companies that was very successful, a supplier with a big one or what have you, and they call that open innovation. So I call that cross-company collaboration, So you need an ecosystem, right? Mm-hmm. Ecosystem with universities and so on, and you have students that come in and so on. You can also have collaboration with big lead customers. That's all normal, but most of that is not open. It's under confidentiality agreements. It is paid for or not paid for. Incubation companies, take that one. We could talk an hour about incubation companies. So the Philipses of this world, they have 150 incubation companies. They buy a percentage of that company with the right to buy 100%. And of less than 10%, they buy 100% in the end.
Right. So I want to, there are two more questions. I'm going to read them both to you right now because we're just at the end of our conversation. So and we'll be really curious to hear your answers, and then we'll close out. The first question from HC is, would you say product management should be enabled? And the second question from Jean-Pierre is, how long does it take to implement the core part of this governance? Is it mainly consulting? Can it be progressive as an adoption?
What I believe is that the product management, I would say product management is a department of product lines. Product lines should be enabled. Product lines should be enabled, and product management should execute on that. Product management will not be enabled if the product line is not enabled and is put in power. So they are put in power on paper, but not in reality in many companies. And that is an issue. That is a real big issue. Then how can you roll this out into companies? It depends a little bit on what the starting point of the company is. If they have a culture that is, let's say, old-fashioned engineering driven, it won't be easy to do that and change that. If you have a company that's already on its way, where it is more balanced between the business side and the engineering side, they will already have things like this in place. So it will already be better. What you really need to do it is the CEO has this problem. The business has this problem. If he doesn't own the governance of the company, then it won't work. Like with any governance, well, more and more companies talk and think about governance. They want management systems. And if you want a management system, whether you want it or not, you have a governance system. Otherwise, your management system is the governance system. And so it will always be, as Sopheon, we do that all the time, putting governance systems in place. What we do now for discrete manufacturing is put, like, let's say, a prefab governance system on the table and say, do you like this? If you like this, then perhaps you also like our software.
Got it. And can I want to push a little deeper, because I'm so very curious myself on Jean-Pierre's very last item about, can this be adopted progressively? Do you need one? Does it all have to happen at once? Or it sounds like if there's already something in place, you can build on that and move slower. What's your sum up of that?
I think, look, if you want to coordinate, and you want to coordinate between the business side and the engineering side, that's what you do. What you could do is, you know what, let's try with one product line, and then do a second product line, something like that. But if you cannot coordinate one arm of your body and the other one goes, it makes no sense. Yeah.
Got it. Well, thank you so much, Huub. This was very interesting and a new region for me, and is giving me food for thought in both space, both smart products per se, and in other complex settings. So really appreciate it. We will see in a moment a link in the chat to join the tomorrow's sessions. There it is. Kate's put the link in there. And please share your insights from the session with your peers on the community platform. You can also put questions there and get some interaction going. The link to the chat is there. Link to the community platform. Enjoy the rest of your evening or your day, or whatever part of the clock you're hitting next.
Okay.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you very much. Thanks.
Thank you, Huub.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Bye.